lots of energy. So we've got a really exciting lineup today. Thrilled to have each and every one of you with us. And I know we are competing with a beautiful day outside. So I really admire your commitment to this important topic and the great work that we have before us today. My name is Jason Lane. I have the great privilege of being the Dean of the School of Education here at the University of Albany. And we're delighted to be able to host this inaugural summit on improvement science. We are co-hosting this event among several entities, and you've got some materials out on your table there. So let me just tell you a little bit about them. One of them is the New York State Master Teacher Program. I hope that you have heard of New York State Master Teacher, but this is a fantastic program funded by New York State and Governor Cuomo to identify who our best and brightest teachers are out in the field. Initially looking at the high school level, we are now down at the K through 5? K-12 all the way through, but we just announced, the governor just announced the latest, the newest cohort of master teachers yesterday, and there was an announcement out about what the applications for the new cohort, right, that is out, so that...
They're open now and run through February 22nd.
So applications are open now, run through February 22nd. I hope you will take an opportunity to look at that program if you're not in it already. I know many of you here are part of the Master Teacher Program as well. So take a look at that. I encourage you to let others know as well. We also are partnering with New York Kids. New York Kids is a program that's been funded by New York State for a period of time now to look at odds-beating schools across New York State to understand districts that are really performing ahead of where they should be statistically speaking. They do reports regularly. You have one of those reports on your table out there. This is looking specifically at college and career readiness. So I hope that you'll have a chance to take a look at that and also go to their website. They've got a fantastic bit of data out there on looking at issues within the various school districts. So you'll learn more about that later today. And then the System Center is a new entity that we've recently created that's trying to be more of a partner with bringing together collaboration, cradle to career, both partnering with higher education and with local school districts and community members to think about the ways that we address equity gaps and other systematic issues of learning that need to be improved in the education system, K-12 through higher education. And you'll see some materials out there from that as well. Part of the System Center, and this is part of this inaugural summit, is we will launch an improvement science micro-credential. So if you're interested in this work, if you're inspired by the work that you hear today, I encourage you to take a look at the micro-credential. It's a graduate level credential. You take 2 courses from the School of Education, you do some supplemental work, and you'll get a badge in improvement science. But it is very much applied to the work that you do in the schools and the classrooms that you live and breathe in every single day. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to take a look at some of those things. We are thrilled to have a number of folks with us today, and events like this, of course, don't take place on their own. And so I want to just thank a few folks before we get going, if I can get to my notes, so I don't forget everybody. First, I want to thank Nancy Zinfer, the former Chancellor of the SUNY system, as well as now a faculty member of the School of Education. She is the visionary behind a lot of this work and is here with us today. We'll hold our applause to the end for everybody. Kristen Wilcox, who is here, just flew in from Florida. She is the director of the New York Kids Project and leads a lot of work on improvement science locally within and across New York State, and will be speaking to us a little bit later. Cheryl Dozier, our Associate Dean of the School of Education, is instrumental in so much of the work that we do in working with our schools. Amanda Lester, who is the Outreach Coordinator from New York Kids, who has been one of our real thought partners in putting this work together. Josephine Salvador is the statewide director of New York State Master Teacher, and Rory Glass, who is the local director of the Capital Region Cohort of Master Teacher Programs, have been instrumental in helping us think through this program and making sure that's relevant to the teachers and the leaders who are in the room today. Tammy Ellis Robinson, Assistant Professor of Special Education, will be one of our cohort leaders later on and really is thinking about issues of equity within our schools. Maria Kahn, well actually there's 2 people, a round of applause for all of them first. And then there are 2 people who have really been the backbone to making sure that this particular day comes together. They have worked tirelessly the last several weeks. Maria Kahn and David Epstein, both within the System Center, have put a tremendous amount of work to putting this together, and so please join me in thanking them for all the work today. So let me just pivot now a bit. This is an exciting year for the University of Albany School of Education. The University of Albany was founded in 1844, 175 years ago. It's New York State's first teachers college. Our mission was to educate the next generation of teachers to ensure that the students of this great state have a fantastic learning experience and go out and be the wonderful citizens that they are across the entire state. 175 years later, I think we are still trying to push the envelope, thinking about new ways to educate both teachers and leaders, preparing them for the schools that they are going to be working within day in and day out, and that's part of what we are doing here. As we think about improving science, as we think about the ways that we can get better at getting better, as we think about the ways that we can help every single student improve, as we think about the ways that we can close the equity gaps, that we ensure every student has an opportunity for a successful educational experience, no matter where they are. And this is really, I think, important, particularly for our region right now, that it's increasingly looking at a diverse population of students who are coming through our school districts. Some of you may have seen an article that was in the Schenectady Gazette a couple of weeks ago that talks about this issue of equity within our local schools, that we do not have enough teachers that are reflecting the changing demographics of our schools and of our classrooms. And so as we think about the work that we're engaged in today, we need to think about these issues of equity. And I know that our keynote speakers are going to be challenging on this very, very topic today. And it's something that we in the School of Education are deeply, deeply committed to as we think about ways both to diversify the education pipeline, that we are bringing more diverse individuals in teaching and to leadership roles, but also that helps all of us think more critically about the roles that we play in ensuring that every student has an equitable educational environment that they're in. And so with that, I am absolutely delighted to be able to welcome our two keynote speakers who are here today. Their bios are in your handout so that you'll be able to see them attached to the schedule. But I just want to talk a little bit about them because the work that they have been doing in New York City is absolutely dynamite. Both of them are instructional leadership partners with New York City schools. As many of you probably know, New York State has something like 737 districts across all of the state, and like organizations. One of those districts is New York City. And that district serves more than 1 million students every single year. So the work that they do in New York City is absolutely incredible. And the work that is happening there is really, really difficult to be able to do in terms of thinking about leveraging and scaling change across the entire district. And that's the work that our two keynote speakers have been deeply embedded in today as they have worked with the Office of the First Deputy Chancellor's Executive Superintendent's team in promoting culturally responsive education and sustainable education. But they've also gone off and they've created their own group called the Culture and Leadership League. And they have cards here up here. I hope we have an opportunity to pick one of these up, where they are taking this work national. And I've heard from colleagues across the nation about the work that they have been doing to work with districts, to work with large-scale groups, to really push the envelope to help us think differently about the work that we do with the students that we deal with every single day. They are here to inspire us, and they are here to challenge us, and I think that is a really great thing. So with that, please join me in welcoming Imani Jones-Ratcliffe and Betty Lugo to the stage.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. You can hear me in the back, right? Ah, this is working. So, good afternoon, leaders. We said good afternoon, leaders. Hello, Albany. Welcome to our, I'm sorry, if not you, then who? Cultivating Equity Keynote. So, I am Imani Jones-Ratcliffe, and I am a founding partner of the Culture and Leadership League, known as the CALL. And our mission is to disrupt, dismantle, and eradicate systems of inequity. And I build leaders for equity. And I am Betty Lugo, so a founding partner of the CALL, and we are a pretty brand new organization that equips, empowers, and educates teams and companies and institutions like schools to examine their systems and structures through the lens of culture and equity, and I also build leaders for equity. That's right. Okay, so I would like to open with a little story. Can I share a little story with you today? Please do. In the back, I don't know if I have permission. Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, so there once was a little seed who only wanted to grow. But the land was hard and dry,
and it felt cold. Now there was a group of farmers, and those farmers, they would not toil. You see, each thought the other would do it, so no one tilled the soil. Now they had water, and they had tools, and there was abundant sun. But instead of cultivating the soil, they wanted to get to the fun. But fun won't come without a steady workflow. You see, there is no harvest without putting in the work, because you reap what you sow.
And what do you think happened to the little seed? What do you think happened to the little seed? Exactly. The little seed never got a chance to grow because each farmer assumed that the other one would do the work. But today, we will grow the seed because if not us, then who?
Today, we are going to tend the soil.
We are going to tend the soil by disrupting, turning over, and making room to plant the seeds of equity.
Today we're going to plant some seeds in you, so that you may plant some seeds in others.
We're going to plant the seeds of purpose, accountability, and call to action.
And today we hope to cultivate the conditions for our seeds to grow by adding some water and some sunshine, and by speaking words of truth and encouragement to them.
Yes, and also by looking inward, using a mirror of accountability, we're going to grow this thing called equity so that you can go out and do this work in your schools.
All right, so for the next 30 minutes and hopefully for the rest of the day, we're going to be family in here, okay? Hello? All right, I like a lot of feedback. And so you know how you want your family to let you know when you're doing a good job? Okay. So if during our talk, if you hear something that you like, or that you agree with, or that really resonates with you, we need for you to let us know. And now the way you can do that is that you can say, yeah. So let me hear you try it. Yeah. Ah. Or you can say, I think that's right. That's right. Try it.
That's right. You got it.
Or my personal favorite, you can say, Or you can snap your fingers like this. So let me see. Let me hear it. That's right. Excellent. So you ready to dig in? Okay. Let's get this work. Okay.
Thank you, Mommy.
You're welcome.
So we said we're going to grow this thing called equity. And some of you might be asking, wait a minute, this is an improvement science conference. And it is, because improvement science is school improvement. And Imani and I believe that school and improvement is racial equity. They go together like peanut butter jelly, and for those of you that speak Spanish, pan con mantequilla. So according to the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, there are 6 core principles in school improvement. And the third principle is to see the system that produces the current outcomes. So that means that you must see the system, and that every system is designed to get the results it gets. It's actually perfectly designed to get the results. Change the system.
All right.
All right, so we're talking about seeds. So what I would like you to do now is, for about 20 seconds, I want you to name a seed. And so in that seed could be something or someone, for those of you in the classroom, related to your instructional practice, or if you're not in the classroom, could be related to your education practice. So name something that you want to nurture, that you want to grow.
This is your think time.
Awesome. And so now I'd like you to turn to our east or west partner. That's a person to your left or your right. And I want you to say hello, Tell them your name if they don't already know you, and just name tell them what that seed is. You don't even tell them why, just what that seed is, and you have about 30 seconds each.
And if it's like to join Can I bring you back? Thank you. So it's important to vocalize what we want to work on, what we want to grow, what we want to, because then it helps to hold ourselves accountable, and then if someone else knows about it, they can hold us accountable too. So as teachers, as leaders rather, in a variety of capacities, right? Because teachers are leaders, and I know that many of you here are master teachers. We're the master teachers in the house. Awesome. And so all those that work in classrooms, in schools, in districts, you're all leaders, especially teachers. So as leaders, it's important that when you're engaging in school improvement work, that you change the system that requires, and so in order to do that, you must cultivate the conditions for the work to take root. And setting those conditions, I heard someone say, that means that you should set the stage for people to practice critical self-reflection. And that's pretty hard, right? It's really hard to look at ourselves, right? And how we are contributing to the system. But because we do that, then we can pave the way for network schools, right? School networks to have conversations about race and identity. And we all know that in this country, it's very difficult to talk about race, and it's probably one of the most difficult things to do. This work is adaptive. It's not a technical work. There's no prescriptive amount of time, so I can't tell you, Imani can't tell you it's going to take you 2 weeks, or 2 months, or 2 years. Not prescriptive. And also that this work is hard and it's uncomfortable. But you have to commit to this discomfort. And actually, we might make some of you feel uncomfortable today, and that's okay because that's part of the work. Black, white, Asian, Latino, that white woman, that black man. How many of you just had a visceral, deep gut reaction to any of those words? I want you to show me. Hold your thumbs up if yes. You see? I don't see any thumbs. That's interesting. I see some. Hold your thumbs down if no. Hold your thumbs to the side if you just want to move on. All right, so we're tilling the soil so that our seeds can grow. And if you have not realized it, we have begun to discuss race. So let me be explicit. If we do not address the problems with the soil, so that's individual, that's institutional, that's systemic racism, then our seeds will not take root. In fact, in our experience, coaching people doing improvement work across hundreds of schools in New York City. Show me someone who brought up race as connected to school improvement work in a mixed race setting, and I will show you another person or a whole group of people that try to divert that conversation to gender or sexual preference or any other issue that has or suffers from inequity, anything but race. I'm seeing some head nods, but I'm not hearing or seeing anything, All right. So Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality, she says that you have to name the problem, because if you don't name the problem, then you cannot see the problem. And if you cannot see the problem, then you cannot solve the problem. So I'm going to name the problem right here as racially disproportionate outcomes in education. That is a problem that we have been trying to solve for many, many years. But why race? Let us ground ourselves in just a little bit of context. So in the New York City public school system, where we are from, 70% of the students are Black or Latino. The Black and Latino students score significantly lower on the ELA and math standard exams than their white and Asian counterparts. In addition, Black students are suspended disproportionate to their white peers. Now, right here in Albany City, 65% of your students are either Black or Hispanic, and just like in New York City, the Black and Hispanic students are scoring significantly lower on the ELA and the math exams than their white and Asian counterparts. More specifically, this is data from the most recent exams, and this shows the percentage of 3rd through 8th grade students that scored proficient in ELA and math. So the blue bar represents ELA, and the red bar represents math, and it's listed here by race. So I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds just to take that in. All right, and so in improvement science, we say that the work must be problem-specific or user-centered. And so again, the problem is that there are many racially disproportionate outcomes on just about every metric. I just showed you just a few things, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about and try to think about addressing here today. All right, so we're going to give you a chance to turn and talk, but this time we want you to turn and talk to East-West partner. So try to find the same person that you were speaking with before, that you shared your seat with, and we want you to pick one of these questions to discuss. Again, you will have 1 minute each, so mind your airtime so you both get the opportunity to share. But we want you to pick a question according to how vulnerable you are willing to be. So, if you're feeling like you want to, stay a little safe, that's okay. You can answer the lower vulnerability question, which is, what do you think about the data you've just seen? If you're feeling a little more brave, then please start with the medium vulnerability question, which is, how might this context that we just discussed relate to the seed that you're trying to plant? But if you're feeling courageous, I'm feeling courageous, you feeling courageous?
I am.
If you're feeling courageous, please begin with the higher vulnerability question and try to answer, what role does race play in your work? So, with your partner, you don't have to answer the same question. Start where you feel comfortable, and if you have time, try to answer another question. All right? You may begin. You have 2 minutes. We'll let you know when 1 minute's up.
I'm going to go higher. You said that this number was going lower.
learning in our students and getting them to blossom and grow independently because they hit the boxes of higher education. So I thought that was kind of cool.
You're at the halfway point. If you haven't switched, please switch now. 1 minute left.
All right, so finish up your last sentence. Time to bring it back. You know, in New York City, you can't even be considered an effective principal if you're not safeguarding fairness, diversity, and equity. And as an educational leader, which every single one of you are, whether you have or do not have positional authority, it is our job to address inequity. This is a famous quote that I pulled from the internet. We may not be the cause of racism, but it is our job to fix it. Because if not us, then who? Excellent. So now we're going to sprout those seeds.
So now that you know this, it's time to hold up an accountability mirror and ask yourself, who do I want to be on this side of history? When I look back 40 years from now, what stories will I be telling my grandchildren? What stories will you be telling your grandchildren? Will they be stories about activism and resistance and having played an active role in disrupting inequity? Or will they be stories regretting how you didn't do enough or how you didn't show up? I know what kind of stories I want to tell the children of my daughter Sophia. I want to tell them that I was a leader for equity and I fought to make schools equitable all across the world. I know those are the stories that I want to tell. What do you want your legacy to be? Because teaching is not just a job. It isn't a job. It's your life's work. It's your purpose. What do you want people to say when you leave this earth? It might sound a little creepy, but what do you want people to say in your eulogy? What do you want them to say about your impact? It's not enough that you work in an urban district. It's not enough that you're a master teacher, even though I know you worked hard to get there. It's not enough that you teach Black and Latino students. It's not enough that you work hard and you put in a lot of hours and you're here on a Saturday when it's nice outside, right? You could be out in the sun chilling. But I'm sorry to tell you that that's not enough. We need to get active in disrupting systems of inequity. That's right. And it takes us, right? Because if it's not us, then who? We need to hold ourselves accountable and we need to hold each other accountable. And I would like to share a video with you by the author Marlon Jones. And he talks about getting active and holding people accountable. As you're watching the video, I want you to ask yourself this question. What is something I can actively do this school year, not in 2 years, not in 3 years, but this school year, like starting Monday when you go back to your school or to your district? What can I do to disrupt systems of inequity in education? Take a.
So I have a question for you. Are you non or are you anti? Several months ago, in response to Ferguson, Baltimore, the killings of Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice, my friend Caitlin put up a Facebook post breaking down the difference between non-racism and anti-racism. Most of us are non-racist. Because racism is looked upon as some moral lapse, we feel quite self-assured by simply not being racist. I'm not a bigot. I don't sing that N-word when my favorite rap jam comes on. I didn't vote for that guy. I'm not burning any crosses. I'm not a skinhead. I don't, I won't, I'm not, I've never, I can't. What you end up with is an entire moral stance, an entire code for living your life and dealing with all the injustice in the world by not doing a damn thing. That's the great thing about none. You can pull it off by simply rolling over in your bed and going to sleep. So why are you sitting at home and watching things unfold on TV instead of doing something about it? Because you're a non-racist, not an anti-racist. Now do this for me. Take the C out of racist and replace it with a P. I'm not a rapist. I'm not friends with any rapist. I didn't buy that rapist last album. All these things that you're not doing. Meanwhile, people are still getting raped and black boys are being killed. It's not enough that you don't do these things. You're going to bed with a clear conscience. It's not going to stop college students from getting assaulted. You thinking climate change is terrible is not going to stop climate change. You being so assured that you're not anti-black, anti-Muslim won't stop the next hate crime. And it's wonderful that you recognize how brave gay people are when facing persecution, but they aren't the ones who need to be brave. We need to get active. We need to hold people accountable. We need to accept that what hurts one of us hurts all of us. And we need to stop thinking that injustice going on in the world isn't to an extent our fault. We need to stop being non and start being anti.
Racism.
So I would like you to talk to someone about what because remember, going back to that, when we vocalize something, we hold ourselves and each other accountable. So I would like you to turn and talk to a different partner now, possibly someone, a north or south partner, someone in front of you or someone different.
Yeah, stand up.
And you're going to be talking, and let's, you know what, let's stand up. If you're able. You're going to find yourself a different partner. And you're going to be talking about this question. So what is something that you're going to actively do this school year to disrupt systems of inequity in education? So in your system, be it your classroom, your school, or your district. And you have a minute each. You can begin now. Thank you. So I'm going to leave you with these words. So no more, I don't, I'm not, I've never, I can't. I'm charging you with being leaders for equity. Let's be leaders for equity that build classrooms, schools, and systems that are anti-racist.
You know, that's great, Betty. But I actually think that most people think racism is bad, right? You think? I hope so. I think that most people want schools to be more equitable so all students can learn, right? But, you know, I also think that just like the farmers in that story before, I think everyone wants to enjoy the harvest, but what I really want to know is who's gonna put in the work.
Well, I say that's us, Imani.
Oh, really?
Really?
All right, well, let's get that water. Let's get that sunshine. All right, so what are we to do about all of this? We have some equity strategies to share with you today that have worked for us in schools. I'm about to share it with you, but before I start sharing them, I want you to think and write while you are listening, because you're going to discuss this later. So as you hear the equity strategies, take note any way you do it, if it's on your phone, if it's just in your brain, if it's a pen, laptop, whatever it is. And I want you to think, which equity strategy will you commit to actually try or at least learn more about? Because if we leave it in this room, what's the point of it all, right? So think about that. So let's dig in. One of the key strategies that we use is we put a lot of work into creating the conditions for people to actually speak their truth. So ways to do that. It is very important for you to build trust and community. The leaders, you must show vulnerability by actually learning about the current culture in your school building. Now, ways to do that. You can engage in a lot of equity team builders. You can Google them. There are a plethora of them. Also, you should conduct anonymous surveys or create ways for the staff, students, and the families to share how they are experiencing your school's culture. The reason you are doing this is to cultivate the conditions required for people to actually speak their truth and practice that critical self-reflection we talked about earlier. And it can also surface biases that you can then begin to work through. Next, another key thing that we start all of our schools off with is creating a vision for equity. So, to do that, you want to actually set a vision with your community, be it in your school or your office, wherever it is, and you want to set a vision for what an equitable school actually looks like. You want to give people something to shoot towards, right? Now, the way you can do that is by collaboratively creating community agreements. And these are the things, these are ways that you will behave to reach that vision. Why? Because this paves the way to actually have the conversations about race and identity, and it fosters community. That's right. Now, I don't mean to make it seem like this is easy. Discussing race is not easy. So, we've come across a number of pitfalls, and I'm going to share a few with you today, and a few tips on how to avoid them. So, one of the key things is that when you talk about race, people can shut down or get very defensive, right? So a way you can avoid it is, again, by cultivating the condition for people to speak their truth and to engage in race and identity work through discussions and activities, especially related to the specific problem of practice that you may be working on. Another pitfall is that discussions and conversations, people want to avoid them at all costs. But what you can do is you can meet people where they are, as well as scaffold those discussions and activities anchored in your norms or community agreements. And another key strategy we use is that we utilize racial affinity groups to create additional safety. So if you're not in a place in your community where you can go straight to interracial dialogue about some very sensitive race issues and topics regarding your school, we actually group people by race, and they start the discussions that way because they have similar experiences, and it creates additional safety for them before they move into interracial dialogue. Another pitfall is that if you have a culture of nice, where no one ever wants to offend anyone, no one ever wants to feel any percentage, any modicum of discomfort whatsoever, this will prevent authentic and necessary racial equity discussions from taking place. You have to be comfortable with the discomfort. So to avoid that, you want to develop systems and structures and use discussion protocols in your teams and your network communities for giving authentic and transparent feedback, specifically around the problem that you wish to solve. Also, you have to see the problem to actually solve the problem. We talked about that earlier. So you must anchor your work in the data. And sometimes you have to be creative and collect data that you don't already have. For example, qualitative data. You might conduct student interviews or focus groups. And then two questions are important to report data on. One is, who do you even call on in your classroom? You may not realize that you tend to call on one group over another group. And also, whose voice is not being heard? That can be in the classroom, that can be in your office, it can be anywhere, but whose voice is not being heard? You need to get data around that. And you do that by disaggregating your data by race and by any other possible inequity. So it can be class, it can be gender, students with IEPs, English language learners, whatever it is. Why are you doing this? Because you want to find out where any disproportionate outcomes live so that you can actually address them, so you can see the problem, because if you don't know, you cannot fix it. But I can't tell you how many times that leaders were devastated when they disaggregated their data and they learned that there was all kind of disproportionality happening and they had no idea. So there are pitfalls, and here are some tips. Again, the number one thing, the truth can really hurt. And so, like, people have cried over data when they realized that black boys were getting suspended so much and they really didn't know, etc. So people would rather ignore it or avoid difficult data about racially disparate patterns. But what you have to do is build the trust and the skill for interracial dialogue through racial equity professional learning and activities. People actually need to receive formal professional learning around racial equity. Also, listen, we are all biased and we actually see the data through our racial identities. So what you want to do is stay low inference, and you must continually ask yourself, what aspects of your identity are actually impacting your ability to stay low inference? In addition, and this is like my pet peeve, but you will hear it all the time, people often blame the students and they blame their families for the bad outcomes instead of implicating themselves. It is not easy for you to implicate yourself, but if you do not do that, you cannot function within your locus of control to make it better. So you avoid that by maintaining a systemic lens. Listen, your classroom is your system, and you must ask yourself, how is your system currently functioning to create the outcomes that it is getting? Right. All right, so that was a lot of information. Hopefully you took some notes. Again, well, this time I'm going to stand up again. Try to find your same partner you just had, your North-South partner. And again, you will have 1 minute each, and you will discuss which equity strategy are you going to commit to try, or at least to learn more about. And you will be held accountable for that a little later. So please get up and discuss. Find your partner.
It's easy when we don't have to travel for it. different experts in some of my industry. And who are you? Because I think there's a point where we lose our so I think that in my case, I think one of the things I have to do is make it more
You have 1 minute left. Make sure the other person gets to speak as well.
it's a necessary step. I would say be transparent, live your truth. You know, as if that's a singular thing, but it's not, right? And it's hard to acknowledge, especially from a position where I think it's easy to dismiss it. So if we just do this, everybody, you know, if everybody does the same, everybody's going to get the same stuff. You know what I mean? And it's hard, and acknowledge the fact that that exists, but I don't know how to live my reality differently. So I think sharing the fact that this is my reality and yours is not going to be the same, but this is where we need to move. So hopefully that's it. Look at us. We're talking about truth.
Hey,
I had a friend of mine, a colleague that told me a story, and it was disturbing. Because sometimes it's the oppressed view that matters, and it's hard to see it. And it was
all right, let's go back to
gender group that got together for a book
Thank you
study.
so much.
And they brought in this guest speaker, and their focus was on gender, and they were in the buffet. And she turns to the guest speaker that they brought in and says, "It must be great, like, we're not
We're heading back to ours
together." You know, it's like, so we don't have to. She said, "I guess
Thank you.
you know."
And come back.
So it's like a blinded truth, you know?
All right, everybody find their seats. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. All right, so change is uncomfortable but necessary. So we must ask ourselves and each other the hard questions. We may not always have the power, but we can always have influence. Remember that.
Believe it or not, we're like at the end. And so before we go, we want to review today's ideas. So remember, school improvement work and racial equity work go hand in hand, peanut butter and jelly, like Betty and Imani. Every system is designed to get the results it gets. So if you want to improve, you must change the system.
Right.
As a leader, with and without positional authority, because remember, you all have influence. Your job is to address inequity. You need to get active, and we need to get active now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, not in 5 years, not when you retire. You have to get active now in disrupting systems of inequity. Recommend that you build trust and community to help facilitate those uncomfortable conversations about race and identity, because talking about race is hard. And please anchor your work in data. Disaggregate that data, because you cannot see, if you don't see the problem, then you cannot solve the problem, right? How can you solve something that you cannot see? And keep your focus on the system. Do not blame your students and do not blame their families.
So I think, considering all of this, it's time for a new story. What do you think? All right, read along. Here's the new story. There once was a seed who only wanted to grow. There were many farmers, and they all wanted to sow. So they cultivated the soil, did the work, no one felt torture. And when the sun came out, ooh, then they brought that water. So the little seed took root and grew and grew and grew. Because cultivating equity takes all of us and you.
All right. So just charge our teams, the teams that we work with being leaders for equity. We want to charge you with being leaders for equity. But in order to do that, there's some questions that you need to ask yourself. So you need to ask yourself, like, who do you need to be to lead this work in your system? Remember, your system could be your classroom, your school, your district. What kind of leader for equity will you commit to be? And so, since commitment is important and accountability is important, at the very end, we're going to ask you to share information, your email and or your phone, hopefully both, your phone number, with one of the partners you spoke to. And you're going to agree on a time to connect, hopefully very soon. And when you connect, you're going to discuss how you're doing on that equity strategy that you agreed to try a little while ago. Does that sound good? I don't hear you. All right. Because if not you, then who?
All right, so we're going to end with an African tradition of call and response. So I need everyone standing.
They stand.
Stand up and play. All right? So when I say, are you with equity? I would love it if every one of you said, yeah, you know me. Now notice I put a little stank on it. I put a little flavor on it. I did not say, yeah, you know me. I want you to say it like you're actually going to increase equity in your system when you leave here. So you can look to your east partner or your west partner. Someone in front of you or behind you, you can do a little shimmy or you can raise your hand in the air like you just don't care. But give me some energy, volume, and flavor. So you ready to try it? All right. Are you with equity?
Yeah, you know me.
Are you with equity?
Yeah, you know me.
Nice and loud. Are you with equity?
Yeah, you know me.
Ah, excellent. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Because if not you, then who? It's you and you and you and you. It's all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And don't forget, now is the time to exchange information with your accountability partner.
All right, so what was it? Are you with equity? Yeah, you know me. All right. One more round of applause for the dynamic duo. What a